That's the bell ringing on Wall Street, and that means the US markets are open. And we are live across the globe. Guess what? It's time for the Money News That Matters. I'm Aaron Heslehurst, and this is my brand new show, Talking Business. Let's go and take a look at the top stories of the day. Growth in India. Boy, it slows. Was the clampdown on black money to blame? The economy there grew by 6.1%. That is a figure, of course, many countries would envy. But guess what? India needs more. And we're going to be hearing from one of the big bosses at Visa who says India's demonetization has been the right way to go. Hey, also coming up, a Chinese activist is detained while investigating alleged rights abuses at a supplier for Ivanka Trump. And of course, as we do every day, we're going to bring you the latest action from the global markets. And sandwich or salmon? Yeah, the sky-high meal divide, why the middle ground has now but all disappeared from in-flight food. And all of that coming up on this edition of Talking Business. Hey, good morning, America, evening, Asia. Hello, world. Welcome to the program. Lots going on as we've just had the latest figures from India. Let's talk about that because the country has lost its title as the world's fastest growing major economy. Now, in the first 3 months of this year, the annualized rate, there you go, 6.1%. Now, by comparison, China, the world's second biggest economy, grew by 6.9% over that same 3 months. Now, in 2016, you may remember this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi replaced all 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, 86% of the country's currency. The demonetization was designed to flush so-called black money out of the shadows, but has it also damaged growth? Let's get rid of the cube and let's go and find out. We're going to go straight over live to Mumbai to our very own Samir Hashmi, who joins us. There you are. Samir, great to see you. Welcome to the program, Samir. Boy, a lot of people got this wrong. I thought the expectation was for India's growth to come in around 7.1%. Has the removal of all those banknotes, do you think that's to blame?
Well, that's right. I mean, it's a surprise for sure because most polls had estimated, or economists were talking about 7.1%. Absolutely, that's the key reason, because I was just going through the data and all the core sectors during that period of January to March have taken a hit. So you talk about agriculture, you talk about services, you talk about manufacturing, you talk about industrial production, all of them are down. And that's the key reason why the number has gone down so significantly in this quarter. That's January to March.
Indeed. Well, thanks for that brief update, Samir. We'll talk to you very soon. Thanks, Samir Hashmi, joining us live from Mumbai. Let's stay with the story because Bill Sheedy is one of Visa's senior executives and the CEO in Europe, right? That's right. Great to have you on the program, Bill.
Great to be here, Aaron.
Thank you very much. India's never been really a friend of the card system, right? It's been a cash society.
It's about 90% cash.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons, of course, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi wanted to sort of clean it up, if you will. But the removal of those banknotes, was that a boost to you? Did we see a lot of Indians signing up for cards?
It was. The government's vision towards a cashless economy is when they eliminated the 1,000 and 500 rupee notes, we saw almost a 100% increase in our volume in India, and we saw a 50% increase in the number of small merchants that started accepting cards. Right. So it absolutely was a boon for our business.
Which is very important, obviously, because you can't use the card unless the merchant has the device, if you will. Let's switch gears. Can we talk about, just the numbers of people around the world using, I didn't bring my smartphone, but using electronic payment.
Right.
So in Europe, the Europeans using mobile devices for payments has tripled in 2 years, more than 75%. 3/4 of British consumers use electronic payment. And at first I thought, being a bit of a dummy, uh-oh, that's not good news for cards. But of course it is. You have to register a card to use the device.
Yeah, those transactions come over our network. And, for the last 2 generations, cards have served consumers really well, wanting to move from cash to electronic payments. We're seeing now globally 30% growth in the amount of volume that's going over the e-commerce or through the mobile device in a cardless environment, but it's coming over our network, so it's a huge support of growth for us.
Yeah, and around the globe, you'd be a great gauge of seeing how different societies spend their money, if you will, right?
That's right. And what we see in Western Europe and in North America, the business has moved huge to cards and electronic payments. But even in those markets, there's still trillions of dollars of paper currency. And we're seeing markets, even in developed economies, governments getting behind moving to a cashless economy because it increases the tax base, it reduces the informal economy, and it reduces the amount of economic friction that will ultimately drive economic growth. In the rest of the world, the developing economies, which are still huge cash economies like India, 90% cash, they're probably going to leapfrog over cards as a form factor and go right to mobile. And we're very excited. We think it's good for consumers, it's good for merchants, and ultimately it'll be good for those economies. It'll be good for our business.
Yeah. You know, while I've got you, I want to ask you, because we've got to our American friends, hello, a lot of Americans watching. You're holding up this card here, which I can't get off the desk, but contactless. Now, in my birthplace, Australia, big usage here, big usage, tap, done, pay. It never took off in the States. Why?
It didn't. So we rolled it out in the UK as an example, and almost immediately we went to processing, as we do today, 2 million transit transactions in London every day on contactless. We rolled it out in the States, and at that point we hadn't yet moved to chip. The magstripe was very quick and easy. The consumer didn't need to sign. They really didn't see a need for contactless. But now even the US is moving to chip. The contactless transaction will be faster and more convenient. So markets like Australia, like Canada, like the UK that have moved to contactless, we do believe that it will be a big part of the business in the US over time.
Interesting. We'll keep an eye on that one. Hey,
Right.
Bill, real pleasure having you. Thanks
Same
very
here,
much.
Aaron. Thank
Bill
you.
Sheedy from Visa joining us there. Hey, let's talk about this one. A Chinese activist has been detained while investigating alleged worker rights abuses at a supplier for Ivanka Trump's shoe brand. The activist was working undercover for the US-based China Labor Watch, which said he'd witnessed examples of forced overtime and wage violations. Let's go straight over to the one and only Michelle, who is on the streets of the Big Apple. Michelle, great to see you. Michelle, let's start with that. Obviously not great news for brand Ivanka Trump. I'm just wondering how that story is going down where you are.
Well, I think people in America are just waking up to the news that police arrested Hua Haifang. The reason we know this is that his wife apparently spoke to the Associated Press and said that she had lost contact with her husband. 2 of his colleagues also have lost contact with China Labor Watch, that is the group that they were working for, investigating, apparently we understand, a shoe factory for wage abuses, for too much use of student labor, for too much overtime. The question is, the Ivanka Trump brand apparently uses this factory as a supplier. Now, they haven't been too forthcoming so far. Like I say, many people in America are just waking up to this news, so we haven't had much time to get much of a response. But often is the case, as we've seen with Apple and others, they have contracts with suppliers. How much they know about sort of what practices are go on and how much they can enforce them, that is going to be the key question, I think, in the days going forward.
Indeed. Hey, Michelle, while we've got you, and talking about, of course, Ivanka Trump, there's always been these reports that Ivanka was urging her father to stay in the Paris Climate Accord, but there's some reports out just in the last couple of hours, they're not confirmed, but reports out saying that President Trump will withdraw from that Paris Climate Accord. And if that happens, or that's confirmed, I mean, that's going to go down like a Led Zeppelin in many countries around the world.
Yeah, you've got White House officials saying that Donald Trump will withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement, but of course that it's not confirmed until he actually makes the announcement. You can read from that what you will. I think it will be a blow to Ivanka Trump and her husband Jared. They were amongst the camp who were in favor of at least her father staying as part of the deal, keeping the country in the deal. There are also others, from economic advisors, national security advisors, who were encouraging Donald Trump to stick with the Paris Climate Agreement. On the other side, you've got the populists led by the likes of Steve Bannon, who were in favor of withdrawing, saying it was a bad deal for America. And if you look back on the campaign trail, Aaron. Certainly many of the constituents in states like West Virginia, coal country, they were not necessarily in favor of too many environmental regulations, and probably, I suspect, not too big a fan of the Paris Climate Agreement. So this will divide opinions here. But of course, one thing worth pointing out, it leaves the US in the company of Syria and Nicaragua as the two countries that aren't signed up to the Paris Climate Agreement.
Not necessarily the great company, I guess. Hey, Michelle, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Michelle Fleury on the streets, live on the streets of the Big Apple. Let me just touch on some other stories making headlines around the world. What about this one? The American-based taxi firm, we're talking Uber, has sacked an engineer accused of stealing secrets from Google's parent company, which is Alphabet. Uber says the engineer failed to cooperate with a lawsuit, leaving Uber unable to meet a court deadline to hand over technical information. We're going to keep across that one. Hey, Manchester United, if you're a football fan, a soccer fan, guess what? It's the most valuable football club in Europe, worth a staggering $3.3 billion. All of this, according to the figures from KPMG. The study analysed it, broadcasting rights, profitability, popularity, sporting potential, also stadium ownership. And the value of the quid, the British pound, has dropped. It's dropped after a poll suggested a hung parliament in next week's UK general election. That would mean no side has overall control of the government. And you know what the markets hate? Uncertainty about the future. In early trading, sterling fell by more than 5%. That was 0.5%, I should say. That went down. I'm going to show you right now. Hands up. Let's go and take a look at the markets. Let's bring up the market cube. I want to show you the pound. There we go. The pound to the dollar. Look at that. Just $1.28. And that's good news, though. I tell you, the FTSE 100, the news many of the stocks on the FTSE 100 on the London market love to hear. I explained it to you yesterday. Many of these companies make their money outside of the UK, mostly in dollars. So when they bring those dollars back and exchange them in quid, if it's lower, they get more bang for the buck. So it goes up, the markets go up. Hey, over in Germany, in general, I've got to tell you, the world stock market's poised to end May up nearly 2%, marking the 7th straight monthly increase and the longest monthly winning streak in over a decade. And a quick look at the black stuff. Brent crude down. Look at that. Yesterday it was about 52 and some change a barrel. It's $50 and 22 cents a barrel. Okay. Hey, let's talk about this. It's the sky-high food divide. We're going to be taking a look at the growing difference between flying cattle class and your own private jet. That's coming up after the break.
We're living in a global, interconnected world. Every individual and all countries are deeply connected. We're all affected by events that take place even in the most distant parts of the world. This rapid shrinking offers us challenges and economic opportunities. Together, we can shape the future, we can shape the entire world.
Join the conversation, join the war.
With less than a week to go to the UK general election on the 8th of June, Prime Minister Theresa May and opposition Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn will face questions from audience members about the issues that matter to the British public. Join us for Question Time Leaders Special on BBC World News.
Hey, welcome back. You're watching Talking Business with me, Aaron Heslehurst. Let me just recap the top story. It's growth in India. It's slowed. Surprise, surprise, actually. It slowed for the first 3 months of the year, the number coming in at just 6.1%, much lower than many of those so-called experts had been forecasting. Okay, new research shows that abuse and bullying in video games is a growing problem. The anti-bullying charity that's ditched the label said 1 in 2 gamers it spoke to had been bullied or received threats. So what's being done to tackle it? Here's our tech guru, Rory Kathleen-Jones.
You can't just go around calling people whatever you want in real life. So why is that not the same rule when you're playing online? If if I'm playing a game and I score a goal, I've literally been told to kill myself.
That kids are telling us it's given them depression, it's made them feel anxious, it's affected how they see themselves. We're finding that kids, as a result of being bullied in games, are actively going to bully other users as well, as a way of trying to deal with that trauma.
You report somebody for saying something abusive to you, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to get anything happening to them.
Okay, let's switch gears now, because the divide between flying cattle class and first class seems to be growing certainly by the day. While many airlines have ditched free food and economy, those turning left or hopping on board a private jet are getting an increasingly lavish serving of fine food, a sign of a widening class divide, or just good business? Let's find out, because we've got some yummy food too. Lindy Redding joins us. Lindy Redding is from the flight caterer Absolute Taste. Also, Jeremy Clark, airline catering consultant. To you two, welcome. Lindy, thank you for supplying all of us lunch. You should see the crew out there. They're all salivating. Lindy, let me start with you, and we'll talk about this particular food in a minute. But you cater to the private jet industry. A lot different from how most of us fly, but I can only imagine those who can afford that kind of travel must have very expensive taste buds.
They do. I mean, it's changed since the recession. I mean, it used to be much flashier beforehand. Now it's all about good quality. They are a little bit more careful about what they spend, but they know what they want. So it's a very bespoke service.
But they can just pretty much order what they want, right? And they still pay for it. It's not included, right? They say what they want.
Exactly. They can order whatever they want. We have a menu. Hardly anyone ever looks at it. They just tell us what they want, and that's what we provide.
And Jeremy, am I right by saying that, you know, I mean, this is a little beef, something looking very lovely here, but this will taste different at 35,000 a feet because our taste buds change.
It will, it will. Food does change its taste at altitude, and in the market, in the industry that I'm in, we are constantly striving to look for ways to overcome that with using of umamis and various flavourings that isn't MSG, something healthy, to help raise the flavour levels. The same with the wines. You lose your taste at that altitude, so you need to do something to pep the food up a bit. Wow. And as far as the quality is concerned, yes, executive jet food is absolutely the very, very best. But as you say, as you turn left onto a plane, that food is also up there with that quality. Yeah.
Can we talk about, I mean, let's have a look at, you know, some of this food here, because food, I'm not going to use the right terminology, but food, it has to be actually specially designed by these chefs, if you will, designed, created, because, I mean, like, this gets cooked on the ground, and they've got to work out how much to cook it before, because then it's got to be preheated up. So is this food?
This food is actually served cold on the jet, because it can come in a box. So it's actually when you haven't got someone on the jet to serve it. But other food that we do, when there's somebody on board to actually put it into an oven, yeah, we take it to a certain place, and then they actually finish it off on the jet. And we provide full instructions. In fact, we've got a little, you can go online and then you can actually see how to put it together, so they can see exactly how, because how we want it to be put onto the plate is how we want them to serve it, which they might do it upside down if we don't show them.
Maybe so. Jeremy, far cry from this. You and I were talking before we came on air. The global catering industry by 2020 is going to be worth $17.2 billion.
That's what they say.
That's a lot of money. But the food down the back is pretty shoddy, really, isn't it?
And some of it you even have to pay for.
A lot of it nowadays, right?
A lot of it nowadays. In fact, another figure for you here, Aaron. The average, there was a survey done in October last year showing that out of 20 countries, 80% of travellers purchased extras, and the spending average was $62. So people are getting used to the fact that they're having to buy more on the plane. The question is that good for the airline? Is it good for PR? Is it good for their brand? Well, talking about good, so we know British Airways has removed, very controversial, removed free food, if you will, from economy class on short-haul flights. This sandwich I've been holding is what they are offered to buy on board. They've done a deal with Marks and Spencer's, M&S, getting rid of food in economy on a legacy carrier. Smart move, dumb move, Jeremy? Super dumb. For one specific reason, is that British Airways has something that the competitors don't have, and that is heritage. And they don't seem to be able to capitalise and put value to that heritage the way that they should, because that is what differentiates them from the Ryanairs and the EasyJets of this world. And by putting buy on board into economy, they have immediately plonked themselves into the same competitive market. So everybody says, well, now I just compare like for like. Now, be able to turn around and say, oh yes, but it's Marks and Spencer's. But actually, if you are Joe Schmo living in Austin, Texas, you're flying to Berlin, they don't know what Marks and Spencer's is. It means nothing to them. So has it been thought through? I question it.
Lindy, when you fly, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you fly private or do you fly commercial?
I fly commercial.
Do you really? You work in that industry and you're flying commercial? No. So what do you, because you're involved in food, are you always disappointed when you're on board, wherever you're sitting on board?
I'm quite critical of every food, wherever I am, in a restaurant, wherever. I mean, as you say, in the pointy end, yes, it is of quality. I'm usually pretty disappointed, which is a shame, because I know it can be done, and I know you don't have to use foie gras and lobster. You just have to use beautiful products, and you can do it quite simply, which doesn't cost a fortune. So it does disappoint me that it could be better.
Now, in about 20 seconds, if I can. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, even in economy, the food was fairly decent, but the cost cutting and the cost cutting, they've targeted the wrong thing. Is your opinion, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if the cold face of your product is the hospitality, I mean, if you're DHL and UPS, then sure, put yourself in a box and check yourself in. That's the way you want to go. But if you are selling hospitality, then that is the cold face of your product. And for the cost of it, compared to the impact that it has, I mean, very, very quickly, in 10 seconds, you remember a good, bad, or indifferent meal you had on an airline in the last 6 months. You remember. Do you remember what you had for dinner at home a week ago today?
Not at all.
Of course.
Not at all.
So there you go.
Lindy Redding and Jeremy Clark, thanks. You stay there, and I'm going to do the markets, and then we'll come back and have a little taster, won't we? I told you, you saw the bell at the opening of the program on Wall Street, kicking off the US markets. Let's take a look at them. There is the Dow, slightly down. I want to talk about the NASDAQ. This was yesterday at the closing price. Amazon share price, I just want to touch on it, rose above $1,000 mark at the close yesterday. In 97, you could buy the share at $18 each. So there you go. And you can take a quick look at the other one, or we can get rid of those markets. S&P 500 up. Okay, that's it. Yalda's back after the break with Impact. You can get me at BBC Aaron. Let's eat. Let's eat. Come on. What is this?